I never thought I'd wake up from heart surgery to find out my twin sons had sold my house. But there I was. 3 days post-op in Swedish Medical Center in Seattle, still connected to monitors and drainage tubes, when my neighbor Martha called my cell phone. "Bob, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I tried calling your sons, but they won't answer. There's a sold sign in your yard. The new owners just showed up with a moving truck." My chest hurt, and not just from the incision. "Martha, that's impossible. I didn't sell the house." "I know, honey, but they have paperwork, legal documents. I asked to see them because I thought it was a scam. The sale was finalized yesterday. I'm looking at your sons right now. They're directing the movers." The room started spinning. I'd given Derek and Nathan power of attorney before the surgery, just in case something went wrong. It was supposed to be for medical decisions, emergency situations. Not this. "Can you put Derek on the phone?" There was shuffling, then my son's voice. Not apologetic, not even uncomfortable, just matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather. "Dad, you're awake. Good. Look, we need to talk about your living situation." "My living situation? Derek, Martha says you sold my house." "We made a sound financial decision. That house was worth $850,000, Dad. You don't need all that space. The property taxes alone were killing you. We got you a spot at Evergreen Senior Living. It's nice. 3 meals a day, activities, nurses on staff. I didn't ask you to. The deposit was $4,500. First month is $3,200. We put the rest in an investment account under our names, so you can't make any more poor financial choices. You'll get your allowance monthly." My allowance. At 68 years old, after working 42 years as a CPA, after raising these boys alone when their mother left, I was getting an allowance. "You had no right. We had power of attorney. It's legal. Look, Dad, Nathan and I talked about this. You're not getting any younger. What if something happens to you? What if you fall down those stairs? We're protecting you. Protecting your inheritance, you mean? Don't be dramatic. The nursing home expects you Monday. That gives you 3 days to rest up from surgery. They have a room ready." He paused. "Oh, and we cleaned out the house. Donated most of your stuff. Couldn't fit much in the new room anyway. Martha has 2 suitcases for you." The line went dead. He'd hung up on me. My own son, who I'd paid for to go to Washington State University, who I'd helped buy his first car, whose wedding I'd financed, had just stolen my house and hung up on me. I lay there, staring at the white ceiling tiles, trying to process what had just happened. The heart monitor beeped steadily beside me, oblivious to the fact that my heart was breaking in a way no surgery could fix. A nurse came in to check my vitals. Young woman, probably mid-20s, with kind eyes and purple scrubs covered in little cartoon hearts. "Mr. Mitchell, how are you feeling? Pain level? Physically or emotionally?" She looked up from the blood pressure cuff. "Want to talk about it?" And suddenly, inexplicably, I did. Maybe it was the medication. Maybe it was because she was a stranger who wouldn't judge me. Maybe I just needed to say it out loud to believe it was real. "My sons just sold my house while I was unconscious on an operating table." Her hand froze on the IV line. "I'm sorry, what?" 3 days ago, I was living in the house I bought 30 years ago in Ballard. Now I'm homeless. They put me in a nursing home, used the power of attorney I gave them for medical emergencies to liquidate my life." She was quiet for a moment, then sat down in the chair next to my bed. Not something nurses usually do. They're too busy, too many patients. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm not supposed to get involved in family stuff, but do you have a lawyer?" I gave the contact information to my sons, for safekeeping. I laughed, and it hurt my chest. Guess that was stupid. "Do you want me to call someone? A social worker? And tell them what? My sons used legal means to steal from me?" I signed the papers. I gave them the authority. I trusted them. She squeezed my hand. "I'll ask Dr. Chen about extending your stay. Buy you some time to figure things out." Dr. James Chen was the surgeon who'd saved my life. Triple bypass, he'd called it. 3 arteries completely blocked. Another week, and I might not have made it. He'd spent 4 hours carefully rerouting blood flow around the damaged vessels, giving me a second chance at life. Ironic, really. He'd fixed my heart just in time for my sons to break it. Dr. Chen came by that evening during rounds. Late 40s, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of calm competence that makes you trust him immediately. "Mr. Mitchell, I heard about your housing situation. Word travels fast. Seattle's medical community is smaller than you'd think. Plus, your nurse Jennifer is engaged to my cousin. She mentioned your sons." He trailed off, apparently not sure how to finish that sentence. "Sold everything I own while I was under anesthesia? I was going to say, made some questionable decisions, but yes." He pulled up a chair. "Look, I'm not supposed to do this. Hospital policy and all that. But my Uncle George is looking for someone. I'm 68 years old and just had major surgery. I don't think I'm employable right now. Hear me out. My uncle is 76. Retired tech executive, early Microsoft days. Did very well for himself. Lives alone in a big house in Madison Park. His wife passed 2 years ago, and he's been kind of lost since then. Too proud to admit he's lonely. Too stubborn to move into a retirement community. I'm not sure where you're going with this. He needs a housekeeper, but really, I think he needs a friend. Someone his own age who isn't trying to scam him or suck up to him because of his money. Someone who just shows up and treats him like a regular person." "Doctor." Chen adjusted his glasses. "I know this sounds weird. I'm a heart surgeon, not a matchmaker. But I've seen a lot of elderly patients over the years. And the ones who do well after surgery are the ones who have a reason to keep going. You need a place to stay. He needs company. Maybe you could help each other out. Your uncle wants to hire someone fresh out of heart surgery. My uncle wants someone who understands what it's like to be betrayed by the people you're supposed to trust. His own son tried to have him declared incompetent last year so he could take control of the finances. Didn't work, obviously. But it changed George, made him wary of everyone. I thought about the nursing home room waiting for me. 3 meals a day, activities, nurses on staff, everything supervised, scheduled, controlled. My sons visiting occasionally, checking to make sure I wasn't spending their money. What's the catch? No catch. Room and board, modest salary. Help him with errands, maybe cook occasionally, keep him company. He's in good health for his age, just lonely. And maybe a little paranoid after what his son pulled. Doctor?" Chen stood up. "Think about it. I'm releasing you day after tomorrow. You'll need somewhere to go. Evergreen Senior Living or Madison Park. Your choice." After he left, I lay there watching the November rain streak down the window. Seattle in November is gray, perpetually gray. The kind of weather that seeps into your bones and makes you wonder if you'll ever feel warm again. Appropriate, given my circumstances. I thought about calling Derek and Nathan, demanding they reverse the sale, threatening legal action, making them see how much they'd hurt me. But what would be the point? They'd made their choice. They'd looked at their father, the man who'd raised them, who'd sacrificed for them, who'd loved them unconditionally, and seen only a financial asset to be managed. The next morning I told Dr. Chen I'd meet his uncle. What did I have to lose? I'd already lost everything else. George Chen's house wasn't what I expected. I'd pictured something modern and cold, all glass and steel like the tech moguls in Medina. Instead, it was a classic craftsman from the 1922, renovated but still warm, still full of character, wood floors that creaked in friendly ways, built-in bookcases, a fireplace with actual wood stacked beside it. George himself answered the door. Tall for his age, maybe 6'1", with white hair and the kind of sharp eyes that didn't miss anything. He was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, not what I'd expected from a Microsoft millionaire. "You must be Robert. Come in. Don't mind the mess." There was no mess. The house was immaculate. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Chen." "It's George." Mr. Chen was my father. He led me into a living room that looked out over Lake Washington. The view alone was probably worth more than my house had been. "Can I get you anything? Tea? Coffee? Something stronger?" "Coffee would be great, if it's not too much trouble." I was just making some anyway. I followed him into the kitchen. Restaurant-grade appliances, granite countertops, but everything organized like someone who actually cooked, not just someone who had an expensive kitchen to show off. My nephew says you just had heart surgery, triple bypass, 3 days ago, and your sons sold your house while you were unconscious. He told you that part too? James tends to get protective of his patients, especially the ones who've been wronged. George poured 2 cups of coffee, handed me one. Cream and sugar on the counter. We sat at the kitchen table, 2 old men drinking coffee, looking out at the lake. I could see sailboats in the distance, small white triangles against the gray water. I'm not sure what James told you about why I need someone, George said, but I should be honest. I don't need a housekeeper. I have a cleaning service that comes twice a week. I can cook for myself. I'm in good health. My heart sank. This had been too good to be true. What I need, he continued, is to figure out if there are any genuine people left in this world. People who don't want something from me. People who aren't calculating my net worth while we're having coffee. I'm not sure I follow. My son Bradley tried to have me declared incompetent last year. Said I was too old to manage my own affairs. That I was being taken advantage of by scammers. Really? He just wanted control of the money. Wanted to sell this house. Put me in a facility. Liquidate the investments. George stared into his coffee. The judge threw it out. Bradley had no case. But it made me realize I'm alone. Really alone. My wife is gone. My son only sees me as a bank account. My daughter moved to Singapore and barely calls. I'm sorry. Are you? Or are you just saying that because you think it's what I want to hear? The question caught me off guard. I'm saying it because I know what it feels like to be betrayed by your own children. Because I just went through the same thing. Because sitting across from you right now, I see myself in 10 years, if I'm lucky enough to make it that long. Something shifted in George's expression. James said you were honest. Said you'd been an accountant for 40 years. Never even got a parking ticket. Said the worst thing about you was that you're boring. He said I was boring? He meant it as a compliment. In a world full of people trying to be special, sometimes boring is exactly what you need. George refilled both our coffees without asking. Here's my proposal. You stay here. Guest room upstairs. Private bathroom. You help me with errands occasionally. We eat dinner together. We talk. We treat each other like human beings instead of opportunities or obstacles. No lawyers, no contracts, no strings attached. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you're no worse off than you are now. What about payment? Room and board, plus a salary if you want it. But honestly, I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I'm not looking for an employee. I'm looking for... He paused, searching for the word. Company. Friendship. Proof that not everyone is like Bradley. I should have been suspicious. I should have asked more questions, demanded terms in writing, protected myself. But sitting there in that warm kitchen, looking at this lonely old man who'd been betrayed just like me, I just felt tired. Tired of being cautious. Tired of playing it safe. Tired of trusting the wrong people and being hurt. When can I move in? George smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen on anyone since before my surgery. How about now? I'll have James send your things over from the hospital. We can figure out the rest as we go. That first week was strange. I was still recovering, still slow and careful with every movement. George mostly left me alone, giving me space to heal. But we'd have coffee together in the mornings. He'd ask how I was feeling, not in that perfunctory way people do, but like he actually wanted to know. We'd talk about small things, the weather, the news, books we'd read. He never asked about my sons, never pried into the details of what had happened. I appreciated that. I wasn't ready to dissect it yet. By the second week, I was feeling stronger. The incision was healing. I could walk around the house without getting winded. George asked if I wanted to help him with some errands. I need to go to the bank, he said. And maybe we could stop by the library on the way back. Get you a card if you don't have one. The bank was in downtown Seattle. George drove a 10-year-old Volvo, surprisingly modest for someone of his means. He navigated the city traffic with the confidence of someone who'd been driving these streets for decades. At the bank, I waited while he talked to the manager. Through the glass wall of the office, I could see them reviewing documents. the manager nodding seriously. When George came out, he was carrying a thick folder. All set. You hungry? There's a Vietnamese place near here that makes incredible pho. Over lunch, and he was right about the pho. George told me more about his life. How he'd started at Microsoft in 1987, just a programmer who got lucky with stock options. How he'd watched the company grow from a scrappy startup to a tech giant. How he'd retired in 2005, right before his wife got sick. Sarah wanted to travel, he said, stirring his pho absently. We had plans. Europe, Asia, South America. But the cancer was aggressive, stage 4, by the time they found it. She was gone 6 months later. I'm sorry. Everyone says that. I used to hate hearing it, like their sorry could bring her back. But now, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting sentimental in my old age. He looked up at me. What about you? James said your wife left when your boys were young. 12 and 12. Twins. She said she couldn't do it anymore. The suburban life, the routine, the responsibility. Packed a suitcase one Tuesday morning and drove to California. Sent divorce papers 6 months later. That must have been hard. It was. But I thought if I just loved them enough, if I worked hard enough, provided enough, they'd turn out okay. They'd appreciate the sacrifice. I pushed the noodles around in my bowl. Guess I was wrong. You weren't wrong. You did your job. You raised them. What they choose to do with that raising, how they choose to treat you now, that's on them, not you. It was the first time anyone had said that to me, that it wasn't my fault. The nurses had been sympathetic but distant. Martha had been outraged but helpless. Dr. Chen had been professional, but George, who barely knew me, said what I needed to hear. We fell into a rhythm over the next few weeks. I'd make coffee in the morning while George read the paper. We'd plan the day, errands, appointments, sometimes just walking around the neighborhood. He introduced me to his neighbors, nice people who'd known him for years. They welcomed me without question, like it was perfectly natural for George to have a new housemate. Thanksgiving came. George asked if I wanted to invite my sons. No, I said. I don't think I'm ready for that. Fair enough. It'll just be us then. I'll cook the turkey. You make the sides? It was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. No tension, no obligation, no pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Just two old men, eating too much food, watching football, and being honestly, simply content. That's when Derek called. I almost didn't answer. The name flashing on my phone, Derek Mobile, made my chest hurt again. But George saw my face and nodded, like he knew I needed to take it. Dad, finally. I've been trying to reach you for 3 weeks. I've been recovering. From the heart surgery. The one you knew about. Right. Listen, Nathan and I have been thinking. Maybe we moved too fast with the house thing. Maybe we should have talked to you more first. My grip tightened on the phone. Maybe we want to make it up to you. Come to dinner this Sunday. My place. Jennifer's making her famous lasagna. We can all talk, figure out a better arrangement. What changed, Derek? What do you mean? 3 weeks ago, you sold my house, stole my money, and hung up on me. Now you want to have dinner. What changed? Silence. Then, we heard you're staying with some rich guy in Madison Park, the retired Microsoft exec. We thought maybe you'd need somewhere to go, but it sounds like you landed on your feet. And there it was. They'd heard about George. Someone had seen me, mentioned it to someone else, and the news had made it back to my sons. Suddenly, I wasn't a burden anymore. Suddenly, I was interesting again. I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. George was watching me from across the room. The boys? They want to have dinner, suddenly very concerned about my welfare. Because they heard about me. How did you know? Because it's what Bradley did. The minute he thought I was senile and vulnerable, he didn't want anything to do with me. The minute the judge threw out his petition, suddenly he's calling, wanting to repair our relationship. George stood up, poured himself more coffee, even though it was 8 at night, and we were too old to be drinking caffeine this late. What are you going to do? I don't know. Do you want my advice? Please. Go to dinner. Hear what they have to say. But don't let them manipulate you. You know why they're calling. Don't pretend it's something else. He sat back down, cradled the warm mug in both hands. And Robert, whatever you decide, you have a place here. This isn't charity. This isn't temporary. You're my friend. That means something. I went to dinner that Sunday. George drove me over. Derek and Jennifer lived in Kirkland, a nice neighborhood but not as nice as Madison Park, which I'm sure burned them, and said he'd pick me up whenever I called. You sure you don't want me to wait? George asked. If it goes badly, I'll call you right away. If it goes well, I trailed off. Could it go well? Did I even want it to? Derek answered the door. Big smile, big hug, too enthusiastic to be genuine. Dad, you look great. Heart surgery really agreed with you. Nathan was there too, with his wife Stephanie. They'd coordinated, clearly. Both couples dressed nicely, but casually. The house smelling like garlic and tomato sauce, wine already poured, stage managed, rehearsed. We sat down to dinner. The lasagna was good. Jennifer had always been a talented cook. They asked about my recovery, my medication, if I was following the doctor's orders. All the right questions, delivered at the right times, never quite meeting my eyes. Finally, after the plates were cleared and before dessert, Derek leaned forward. Dad, we owe you an apology. Do you? We handled the house situation badly. We should have consulted you first, should have given you options. You should have asked permission. Right. Yes, that's what we mean. He glanced at Nathan, who nodded encouragingly. We want to make it right. We're thinking we could move some of the money back into an account in your name. Give you more access? Maybe help you find a new place. Something smaller but still nice. Why? The question clearly confused him. Because you're our father? I was your father 3 weeks ago. What's different now? Nathan jumped in. We heard you're staying with George Chen. The George Chen. That's great, Dad. Really great. But you should have options. You shouldn't feel like you're dependent on some stranger's charity. George isn't a stranger. He's my friend. You've known him less than a month. He's been more of a son to me in 1 month than either of you have been in the past year. Derek's face flushed. That's not fair, isn't it? Let me ask you something, Derek. What's George Chen's net worth? You've clearly looked it up. What is it? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. You heard I'm staying with a retired Microsoft executive, and you immediately calculated his worth. Estimated how much I might inherit if I play my cards right. Decided you better get back in my good graces before I write you out of whatever windfall you think is coming. I stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. Here's the thing you don't understand. George isn't my meal ticket. He's my friend. The first real friend I've had in years. And if you can't understand the difference, then we have nothing left to talk about. Dad, wait. Thank you for dinner, Jennifer. It was delicious. I called George from the driveway. He answered on the first ring. That was fast. Can you come get me? Already on my way. I had a feeling. On the drive home, and when had I started thinking of George's house as home? I told him everything. The fake apologies, the transparent motives, the way they'd treated me like a problem to be solved, rather than a person to be loved. I'm sorry, George said. You keep apologizing for things that aren't your fault. I'm not apologizing for them. I'm sorry you have to deal with it. Sorry the world works this way. Back at the house, we sat in the living room. George poured 2 glasses of scotch, good scotch, the kind you sip slowly. Can I tell you something? He said. Something I haven't told anyone, not even James? Of course. When Bradley tried to have me declared incompetent, I was terrified. Not of losing the money. I have trusts, lawyers, safeguards, but of being truly alone. Of realizing my own son saw me as an obstacle, as something to be removed. He swirled the scotch, watching the amber liquid catch the firelight. I thought about just giving it all away, donating everything to charity. But that felt like letting him win, like admitting I'd raised a son who valued money over love. So, what did you do? I decided to test people. Anyone who got close to me, anyone who tried to befriend me, I'd test them, put money on the table, see how they reacted. Most failed. Most people are exactly who you think they are. And me? You're still here, aren't you? Despite the fact that I've told you 3 times now that I have more money than I could ever spend. Despite the fact that I could write you a check tomorrow that would solve all your problems. You've never asked, never hinted, never calculated. He set down his glass. Do you know how rare that is, Robert? Maybe I'm just not very smart. Or maybe you're the smartest person I've met in years. Smart enough to know that integrity is worth more than money. December came, cold and gray and wet, typical Seattle winter. George and I developed more routines. Morning coffee, afternoon walks when the rain let up, evening news together. He taught me how to use his ridiculous espresso machine. Sarah bought it, thought we'd become coffee snobs, and I taught him how to make a proper Denver omelet. We never talked about the future, never made long-term plans, but I noticed small things. How George started consulting me before making decisions. What do you think about this investment? Should I go to this charity gala? Is this email from Bradley worth answering? I noticed how I'd started saying we instead of I. We need to get groceries. We should check the furnace. We're out of coffee. I noticed how the guest room had become my room. How George had moved some furniture around to make it more comfortable. How he'd hung pictures of Seattle neighborhoods on the walls, asking me which ones I preferred. 3 days before Christmas, George asked me to come with him to meet his lawyer. Nothing to worry about, he said. Just some estate planning stuff. But I'd like you there. Patricia Wu's office was in downtown Seattle, modern and professional. She was mid-40s, sharply dressed, with the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that told you she didn't suffer fools. Mr. Mitchell, pleasure to meet you. George has told me a lot about you. All bad, I'm sure. She smiled. Quite the opposite. Please, sit. George and Patricia went through a stack of documents. I tried not to listen too carefully. It felt invasive, like overhearing a private conversation. But George kept pulling me in. Robert, what do you think about setting up a foundation? Something focused on elder care advocacy? I think it's a wonderful idea. And housing? There's got to be something better than warehousing seniors in facilities where their own children can rob them blind. Patricia made notes. I'll draft something up. It'll take a few weeks. After the meeting, George took me to lunch. Not fast food or casual. A real restaurant. The kind with white tablecloths and servers who memorize your order. Why did you want me there today? I asked. Because I'm making you a co-trustee of the foundation. If you want the job. I set down my fork. George, I can't. Yes, you can. You're a CPA. You know how money works. More importantly, you understand what it's like to be powerless. To have people make decisions about your life without consulting you. He leaned forward. I'm 76 years old, Robert. I could have another 10 years. Or I could have another 10 days. I want to make sure that when I'm gone, the money does something useful. And I want it overseen by someone I trust. Someone who gives a damn about people, not just profit margins. What about James? James is a surgeon. Brilliant, dedicated, saves lives every day. But he doesn't have time for this. He's also family, which means Bradley will contest anything I give him. You're not family, you're a friend. That makes the arrangement cleaner legally. Your son is going to hate me. My son already hates you. Well, the idea of you. He called me last week. Asked if I was being taken advantage of by some con artist. George smiled. I told him that the only person who'd ever tried to con me was my own son, and it didn't work then either. Christmas morning, George and I exchanged small gifts. I'd gotten him a first edition of Steinbeck's East of Eden. He'd mentioned loving it years ago, from a used bookstore in Pioneer Square. He gave me a framed photograph. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I realized it was his house, our house, the Craftsman in Madison Park. But the photo was dated last week, and there were 2 people standing on the front porch, George and me. Patricia took it when she came by to drop off documents. I had it printed and framed. George's voice was quieter than usual. I wanted you to have proof. Proof that you belong here. Proof that you're home. I might have cried. I'm not sure. 78-year-old men don't like to admit these things. The phone call came 2 days after Christmas. Unknown number, but I answered it anyway. Robert Mitchell? Speaking. This is Bradley Chen, George Chen's son. We need to talk. I don't think we do. My father is 76 years old. He's vulnerable, and you're taking advantage of him. I'm not taking advantage of anyone. Really? So you're not living in his house? You're not eating his food? You're not being named as co-trustee of a multi-million-dollar foundation? His voice was sharp, angry. I don't know what your game is, Mr. Mitchell, but I'm watching you. One wrong move, one questionable transaction, and I'll have lawyers all over you. My father might be fooled, but I'm not. He hung up before I could respond. I told George about the call that evening. He just nodded, unsurprised. Bradley's scared. He thought when Sarah died, he'd eventually get everything. Then I didn't die. Kept on living, kept on making plans, kept on being inconveniently alive. Now there's you, and the foundation. And suddenly his inheritance isn't guaranteed anymore. Am I putting you in danger? Bradley could. Bradley could what? Contest my will? He tried that already. Declare me incompetent? Also tried that. What's left? George poured us both tea. It had become an evening ritual. I've lived my whole life playing by other people's rules. Being careful. Being safe. Making decisions based on what my family would think. What society would accept. You know what I've learned? What? That being careful doesn't protect you from loss. Sarah still died. Bradley still betrayed me. Diane still moved to Singapore. No matter how careful you are, life breaks your heart anyway. He set down his cup. So I've decided to be less careful, to make choices based on what feels right, not what's safe. Having you here feels right, even though your son will fight you on it, especially because my son will fight me on it. It'll prove I made the right choice. New Year's came. We watched the fireworks over Lake Washington from the living room window. Two old men with our scotch and our memories and our hard-won peace. Next year, George said, we're traveling. Europe, if you're up for it. Maybe Japan. Sarah and I never made it there. I've never been out of the country. Then it's settled. We'll be tourists together. Make complete fools of ourselves trying to order coffee in Italian. George, I can't let you pay for. Stop. Just stop. You know what money is? It's paper. Numbers in an account. It's not real. This is real. He gestured between us. Friendship is real. Companionship is real. Having someone to watch fireworks with, someone who doesn't want anything from you except your time and attention. That's real. The money? He shrugged. The money is just a tool. Let me use it for something that matters. February brought my sons back. Not a phone call this time. They showed up at the house unannounced. George and I were in the kitchen, arguing good-naturedly about whether to make Italian or Thai for dinner when the doorbell rang. George answered it. I heard his voice, cool and professional. Can I help you? Then Derek's voice. We're here to see our father. I came to the door. Derek and Nathan stood on the porch, dressed in suits like they'd come from the office, both of them wearing identical expressions of determined righteousness. Boys, Dad, we need to talk. I don't think we do. You're being manipulated. This man, Derek gestured at George, is taking advantage of you. We've done our research. He has a history of what? George's voice was ice. Of being a successful businessman? Of being betrayed by his own son? Of having the audacity to make friends with your father? Of isolating vulnerable elderly people and inserting himself into their finances? That's a lie, I said. George has never asked me for anything. Never taken a penny. Never even suggested I owe him anything. Nathan stepped forward. Dad, we know he's making you co-trustee of his foundation. That's a clear sign of undue influence. We're going to contest it. On what grounds? On the grounds that you're not thinking clearly. You just had major surgery. You're emotionally compromised. And this man swooped in at your most vulnerable. Like you did? The words came out harder than I intended. Like when you sold my house while I was unconscious? When you stole my money? When you decided I was too old and inconvenient to matter anymore? I stepped onto the porch, making them step back. You want to talk about undue influence? You had power of attorney. You had my complete trust, and you betrayed it. George gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere to go. Asked for nothing in return. Treated me like a human being, not a problem to be solved. This is about money, Derek said. You know it is. He's wealthy, And you're... What? I'm what, Derek? You're in debt. You have no savings. Your pension barely covers your medication. You're financially vulnerable, and he knows it. I'm financially vulnerable because my sons liquidated my assets and put me on an allowance. But you're right about one thing. This is about money. Your money. The money you thought you'd inherit from me. The money you'd already mentally spent. And now it's not going to be there, and you're panicking. We're trying to protect you. No. You're trying to protect your inheritance. There's a difference. George put a hand on my shoulder. Gentlemen, your father has made his position clear. I suggest you leave. This isn't over, Nathan said. We're going to fight this. We're going to expose you for what you are. Please do, George replied calmly. I have excellent lawyers. They're very experienced in dealing with ungrateful children who think they're entitled to their parents' money. It never ends well for the children. After they left, I sank into the couch. My chest was hurting again. Not the incision this time, just the weight of everything. I'm sorry, I said. I've brought drama into your life. Bradley wasn't enough. Now you've got Derek and Nathan too. Robert, look at me. George waited until I met his eyes. They can't hurt us. Legally, emotionally, financially. They have no power here. What they can do is waste their own money on lawyers who will tell them exactly what Patricia already told me. You're an adult. I'm an adult. We're both of sound mind. We can make whatever arrangements we want. They'll make your life miserable. They'll try. But here's what they don't understand. I've already been miserable. After Sarah died, after Bradley's betrayal, I was so alone, I sometimes went days without speaking to another person. You changed that. You gave me a reason to get up in the morning, gave me someone to care about, someone to plan with, someone to annoy with my terrible jokes. He smiled. Whatever your sons throw at us, it won't make me regret a single day of this friendship. The legal battle started in March. Derek and Nathan filed a petition claiming I was being unduly influenced. They wanted a psychiatric evaluation, a review of George's finances, an investigation into our living arrangement. Bradley joined the petition, claiming George was being manipulated by both of us. Patricia Wu was magnificent. She filed counter motions, produced witnesses, Dr. Chen, neighbors, even the lady at the Vietnamese restaurant who testified that we came in every Tuesday for pho and always split the check. She documented everything. My financial situation before and after meeting George, demonstrating that I hadn't financially benefited. George's medical records, proving cognitive competence, and testimonials from people who'd known George for decades. The judge was a woman in her 60s, Judge Sandra Martinez. She'd seen these cases before. Adult children trying to control elderly parents. Financial abuse disguised as concern. The hearing took place on a rainy April morning. Derek, Nathan, and Bradley sat on one side of the courtroom with their lawyers. George and I sat on the other with Patricia. The opposing counsel made their case, painted George as a vulnerable widow, lonely and easily manipulated, painted me as a con artist who'd targeted him deliberately, suggested the foundation was a scheme to drain his resources. Then Patricia stood up. Your Honor, the plaintiffs would have you believe that two intelligent, accomplished men in their 70s are incapable of forming a genuine friendship. They want you to believe that any relationship between people of similar ages must be financially motivated. This is not only insulting to my clients, it's a dangerous precedent. She pulled out a folder. Mr. Chen has submitted to multiple cognitive assessments, all of which show he's functioning at or above normal levels for his age. Mr. Mitchell's background check shows 42 years of honest work, no criminal record, no history of fraud. What the plaintiffs are really asking for is control. Control over their fathers' and sons' money. Control over their fathers' and brothers' choices. Control over who they can befriend and how they can spend their remaining years. Judge Martinez looked at the three plaintiffs. Is that what this is about? Money? It's about protecting our father, Derek said, but he couldn't quite meet her eyes. From what? Friendship? Companionship? A meaningful relationship in his elder years? She turned to George. Mr. Chen, do you feel you're being manipulated or coerced? No, Your Honor. I feel, for the first time in 2 years, that I'm not alone. And Mr. Mitchell, are you benefiting financially from this relationship? Only in that I have a place to live, Your Honor. George, Mr. Chen, offers me room and board. In exchange, I provide companionship and help with occasional errands. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement between friends. Have you been named in his will? I glanced at George. We hadn't actually discussed that. I don't know, Your Honor. It's never come up. Patricia spoke up. Mr. Mitchell is listed as co-trustee of the proposed Elder Care Foundation, but that's an administrative role with oversight from an independent board. He has no access to Mr. Chen's personal funds or assets. Judge Martinez made some notes, then looked at the three sons. Gentlemen, I see three men who are concerned about losing an inheritance. What I don't see is any evidence of undue influence, cognitive impairment, or fraud. Your fathers are adults. They have every right to form friendships and make financial decisions without your approval. She signed something. Petition dismissed. And as for the foundation, Mr. Chen is free to establish it as he sees fit. Court adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Derek and Nathan stood by their car, looking deflated. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Dad, Derek called out as we walked to George's Volvo. Can we talk, please? I looked at George. He nodded. 5 minutes, I said. We stood under the courthouse awning, rain drumming on the metal roof. Derek and Nathan both looked uncomfortable, like children called to the principal's office. We're sorry, Nathan finally said. Not for trying to protect you. We still think. We still have concerns. But we're sorry for how we did it. For the house, for the money, for not listening. Are you sorry, or are you just sorry you lost in court? Derek flinched. Both? I don't know, Dad. We panicked. When you had the surgery, when we thought you might die, we realized we weren't ready to be in charge, to make decisions, to be adults. So we made a bunch of bad choices really fast. And by the time we realized how bad they were, we'd already committed. That doesn't make it okay. We know. We're not asking you to forgive us. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But we want to try. Want to do better. Nathan stepped closer. Is there a way back from this? Is there any chance we can fix what we broke? I thought about it. Really thought about it. These were my sons. I'd raised them, loved them, sacrificed for them. But they'd also betrayed me in the deepest way possible. Treated me as an inconvenience, a financial problem, something to be managed and controlled. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe, someday, but not now. Right now, I need you to respect my choices. Respect my friendship with George. Respect that I'm an adult who can make his own decisions. Even if we think you're making a mistake, even then, that's what respect means. They nodded, both of them looking younger somehow. Less sure. Maybe that was growth. Maybe that was the beginning of wisdom. George and I drove home in comfortable silence. The rain was letting up, weak afternoon sun breaking through the clouds. Seattle in spring is beautiful. All those hidden flowers suddenly blooming. The city remembering it can be something other than gray. Thank you, George said. For what? For standing up to them. For not folding. For proving that we made the right choice. We? You think this friendship has been one-sided? You think you're the only one who's benefited? He pulled into the driveway, turned off the engine. Robert, when you moved in, I was existing, going through the motions. Now I'm living. Making plans, looking forward to tomorrow. You gave me that. Inside, we made tea and sat in the living room. The lake was calm, the rain-washed air making everything look sharper, clearer. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything. Your will. You don't have to tell me, but... Am I in it? George smiled. You really didn't know? We've never discussed it. The house is yours. If you outlive me, which I hope you do, it's yours. No strings, no conditions. Patricia drew up the papers 3 months ago. George, I can't. Yes, you can. It's my house, my decision. Bradley's getting some money, not as much as he wanted, but enough. Diane's getting money, James is getting money. The rest is going to the foundation. But the house? That's yours. Because it's been your home for 6 months now, and that should be honored. What if I die first? Then the house goes to the foundation. They'll probably sell it, use the money for elder care programs. But either way, Bradley doesn't get it. That's important to me. He set down his tea. He tried to take my home, put me in a facility, control my life. I'm not rewarding that with prime Madison Park real estate. The foundation launched in August. The George and Sarah Chen Foundation for Elder Care Advocacy. Patricia handled the legal work. I handled the finances and day-to-day operations. We hired a small staff, rented office space in Fremont, and started funding programs that helped seniors maintain independence and dignity. One of our first initiatives was legal aid for elders fighting guardianship abuse, free lawyers for people whose children were trying to declare them incompetent. It was personal for both of us, and it felt good to turn our pain into something useful. George's health started declining that fall. Nothing dramatic, just the slow erosion of time. He moved slower, tired more easily. Some days he'd forget what day it was, forget where he'd put his keys. Dr. Chen said it was normal aging, not Alzheimer's, just the gentle dimming that comes to everyone eventually. I took on more of the household tasks, cooking, cleaning, managing the calendar. George pretended not to notice, preserved his dignity, but we both knew. He was fading, and I was watching it happen, powerless to stop it. On a clear October evening, we sat on the back deck watching the sunset over the lake. George had a blanket over his lap, despite the relatively warm weather. "I'm ready, he said suddenly. "Ready for what?" "To go, when it's time. I'm not afraid anymore." He looked at me. I thought I would be. After Sarah died, I was terrified of dying. Terrified of being alone in those final moments. But I'm not alone anymore. Whatever happens, whenever it happens, I know you'll be there. That's enough. "Don't talk like that. You're fine," Dr. Chen said. Dr. Chen said I'm aging normally, but normal aging ends the same way for everyone. He reached over, patted my hand. "It's okay, Robert. I've lived a good life, especially these last months. You gave me that. Let me say thank you while I still can." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do, because otherwise I'll die with gratitude stuck in my throat, and that would be a waste." George died in his sleep in December, 3 days before Christmas. I found him in the morning when he didn't come down for coffee. He looked peaceful, comfortable, like he'd simply decided it was time and slipped away quietly. The funeral was small. James and his family, some neighbors, a few old friends from Microsoft. Diane flew in from Singapore. Bradley came but stood apart, still angry, still convinced I'd somehow stolen his father from him. I delivered the eulogy, talking about friendship and second chances, and how sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. I talked about pho and coffee and terrible jokes and sitting in comfortable silence watching the rain. I talked about dignity and respect, and what it means to see someone as a person, not as a means to an end. Patricia read the will 2 weeks later. Bradley contested it immediately, of course. But Judge Martinez was still on the bench, and she remembered us. The will stood. The house was mine. The foundation was funded. George's legacy was secure. Derek and Nathan came to the memorial service, stood in the back, didn't approach me afterward. But they came. Maybe that was something. Maybe that was growth. I still live in the house, still make coffee every morning, still sit in George's chair, overlooking the lake. The foundation is thriving, helping hundreds of seniors maintain their independence, fight back against abuse, live with dignity. Some days I miss George so much it physically hurts. Miss his laugh, his perspective, his presence. But mostly I'm grateful. Grateful for the year we had. Grateful for the lessons he taught me about what family really means. My sons and I are talking again. Slowly, carefully. They come for dinner once a month. We're not where we were before. We'll never be there again. But we're building something new, something honest, something based on mutual respect rather than obligation. It's enough. And every morning, when I make coffee in George's ridiculous espresso machine, I say the same thing. Thank you. For the friendship, for the second chance, for proving that even at 68, abandoned and betrayed, you can find family in the most unexpected places, for teaching me that true family is what you choose. And sometimes, the people who choose you back are the ones worth keeping.